Hey guys, welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Wednesday, July 15th, 2025. And a little bit happening at the moment. Of course, the fallout still with the retirement of Tyson Fury. That was interesting to see yesterday, that everyone, of course, having the say and pretty much echoing what I said, that a little bit of the little boy that cried wolf thing happening here. But is it going to be actual fact? I strongly doubt it. How could you turn up like $100 million payday against Joshua? I don't understand it. But everyone weighed in. Everyone had their say. Again, everyone echoed what I said. It was interesting to hear Eddie Hearn. Now, while he said, look, I fully expect Tyson Fury to be back, even though we've been on the Joshua train. And of course he's going to do that. He's Joshua's promoter. And he stands to make a lot of money out of the event as well. Him saying, well, you know, it is what it is. Even though we expect Tyson to come back, we've got other options. But the options were the interesting one. One of them was, of course, the winner of Dubois and Parker, but you would think that the winner of that would be in line to fight Usyk. So I think you could discount that. It did throw up a Coley. That wouldn't be a bad fight, but he did mention Dillian Whyte. Now, how many times does someone like Dillian Whyte and Derek Chisora have to be rolled out? Is this infatuation that Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua have over these guys? They've combined probably fought them 6 or 7 times. I mean, I understand in England they're big fights, but is there a point where these guys have just got to stop getting paydays? I mean, that neither one of them ever have any big wins to actually justify these said fights, but they always end up fighting Joshua or Fury at some stage. It's quite hilarious, actually. But at the end of the day, I think they must all be friends and just like giving each other paydays. I don't know, but that did surprise me with Dillian Whyte, that he was mentioned as a possible opponent for Anthony Joshua. Look, maybe if there's no one else and he desperately wants to fight mid-year or whatever it is, okay. But surely there's a heavyweight out there. I mean, in the same breath as saying Dillian Whyte could be mentioned as a possible opponent, and he's saying, well, we don't want the second and third tier fights anymore. You know, we've only got a limited time left in the sport. We want the biggest fights possible. Is that the biggest fight possible for Anthony Joshua? I don't think so. I understand the way it works, and it maybe would generate a lot of money, but yeah, Anthony Joshua versus Dillian Whyte, I think, will just be a waste of time. As I said, Bacoli would be good. There are some pretty good fights for him, but you know, he's got to want to take those fights, and by the sounds of things, they're going to continue to probably goad Fury and just wait it out. I think I said yesterday or the day before, whatever it was, that this is the first step for Tyson Fury just to start proceedings by announcing his retirement. Well, just get things underway for a potential fight with Joshua by announcing his retirement. That's step one. Step two is just to wait it out for a little while. Go radio silent, if that's what I think that's what they call it, isn't it? Go or have radio silence of your career. Don't go on social media. Don't grant interviews. Just go home and enjoy the $200 million that you've got at the moment, and just wait. Sit there, have a bit of time off, because there'll be one phone call, and then there'll be 2, and then there'll be 3, and then all of a sudden, Frank Warren will be knocking on his door saying, hey, Tyson, it's probably about time we get things rolling. No doubt Eddie will be in constant contact with Frank Warren, much to his disgust, and there'll be little leaks probably then coming in the media, and you know, he'll start things on social media, and then you get the gist. It'll just go on from there, and all of a sudden, the fight will be signed, and away we go. Is it possible, though, that he stays retired? I don't think so. There's just too much money on the board. There's too much, what would you call it? There's too much on the line as far as his legacy goes, if you ask me. I think he's a proud man. I know I said yesterday he's a bit of aloof and, you know, sort of comes across as not that serious about it, but deep down he would be super serious about it, and probably to the extent about how he's viewed in history. He's always been pretty adamant about, you know, he thinks he's the greatest heavyweight of all time, which has obviously been proven to be wrong, but he's a proud guy. He's a proud guy, and I don't think he would want the 2 Usyk losses to be all that we sort of remember about him. I mean, he's had some great wars over the years, but I don't think he would want to go out this way. As jovial as he seems sometimes, I don't think this is what he would want. And he's also surprisingly a pretty subby type of businessman. When he's done had his retirements in the past, he's come back and had some massive fights after that and earned a lot of money. So we'll see. But I mean, on the Fury and Joshua fight as a whole, there was an article I read yesterday, and it was actually not a bad one. I read a couple. I've got a few to go through here, but it was along the lines of, if the Fury-Joshua fight doesn't happen, will we be able to, I got it right the second time, didn't I? Be able to forgive both of these guys if we don't get the fight, because they're both to blame in some way. Now, this fight should have happened 5 or 6 years ago, and for whatever reason, it just hasn't. Now, they both had titles at different stages. They were both, well, the time was prime a couple of times, probably 2-3 times. It's been ready to go, and it just hasn't been able to get made. So if it doesn't happen, are they going to be forgiven? I don't think so. I think a lot of British boxing fans will be filthy that this fight never happened. I think the promoters will be filthy, of course, because they lose money as well. And I think to some extent the fighters would be probably pissed off at each other. You know, Fury would think he hasn't done anything wrong. Joshua wouldn't have thought he'd done anything wrong. He would have thought they would have been doing everything right to get the fight done. It was the other one that didn't get it done. But I think if they don't fight, it will be a bigger part of their legacy than what they actually achieved in the ring. So when we think of Tyson Fury, it'll be, yeah, he did this, did that, and you're going to have the perception of what he was like as a fighter, but geez, he didn't fight AJ. And same as AJ, you know, 2-time heavyweight champion, all that sort of stuff, and had some great wins, some memorable losses as well, but he didn't fight Fury. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But it does also raise thoughts about, you know, a couple of other heavyweight fights that just never happened. Not just heavyweight, but other fights that just never happened. I mean, the one, probably the most recent one for me, even though it was quite some years ago now, is probably the Lennox Lewis-Riddick Bowe fight. Never happened. And I put these two in the category of Fury and Joshua. It's almost like these two were made or almost born to fight each other. They, of course, fought at the Olympics in '88. Lennox Lewis stopped Riddick Bowe for the gold medal. And it just seemed like on countless times they were on a collision course to meet, and it just never happened. Of course, it was supposed to happen because Lennox Lewis was the mandatory challenger when Riddick Bowe beat Vander Holyfield, and he famously dumped the WBC belt in the bin, and Lennox Lewis fought for the belt, and the rest is history. But that, for me, it's like, as I said, it's almost like these guys were supposed to be together in some way in a 2 or 3 fight trilogy. Of course, they had the Olympic background, and it just sort of, you know, sometimes you just think two fighters are sort of interlocked, and as many great fights as Lewis had and Bowe had, not so many as Lewis, but they both had some big fights and some big wins. The fact that they never fought each other, I think, is one of the biggest travesties that we've ever had in the heavyweight division. And I know it's on a lot smaller scale, but you know, you think of Ali Fraser, you think of now Fury Joshua. Well, back then it was Lewis and Bowe. Why haven't these guys fought? Like Tyson Holyfield, why haven't these guys fought? And I just think it was one of those great fights, or great series of fights, that we missed out on. So, I mean, also back in the day, you can also probably throw in Bowe didn't fight Tyson either. That was just, I think, one of those things that it just never happened for a variety of reasons. You know, when Bowe won the title off Holyfield, of course, Tyson was either in prison or just coming out of prison, and when Tyson had it, Bowe was not around. It's just one of those things that happen. I'm not that stressed about the Tyson-Bowe situation, although that would have been a great fight as well. Strangely enough, when you put in Tyson, Holyfield, Lewis and Bowe, Holyfield is the only one that fought the other three. Of course, he fought Lewis twice, Tyson twice, and Bowe 3 times. So he fought the other 3 7 times. What did Lewis fight? He fought Holyfield twice and Lewis once. So he's had 3. Bo, just with he had the 3 against Holyfield. So, and what was Tyson? 1. So he's only fought Holyfield twice and Lewis once. So he's only had 3 as well. So you think of Evander Holyfield's standing in history, and he did actually say the other day that in his opinion, he is the greatest heavyweight of all time. I don't think we believe that as much as we love Evander, and I would have him in my top 10, no doubt about it, but not better than Ali. But isn't it interesting that, you know, you talk about resumes, Holyfield's resume stacks up. I know I'm getting off subject here, by the way, but yeah, 7 fights against those other 3 guys, just pretty crazy, isn't it? So, and what he beat, well, we'll put that second Tyson fight as a win. So he went 2 wins against, 2 losses. So he went 4-1, 4-2-1. I think that's the record. 4 wins, 2 losses and a draw. I think so anyway. But anyway, we'll get back on subject. But yeah, that fight with Lewis and Bo, I think again would go down with this one as probably the biggest heavyweight fight that never, and not just fight, series of fights that never happened. Anyway, we will wait and see. Another thing that I saw, actually just quickly before I get on to the Turkey Al Sheikh article that I read, which is interesting as well. It was reported yesterday, well, not really reported, but leaked on several accounts of senior journalists, boxing journalists, that the Haney Garcia rematch was set. Now, they didn't have a date and location like that, but it was agreed upon that Haney would drop the lawsuit in return for Garcia getting on the VADA program or whatever it is, registering for that, and we'd have the rematch. So it was going to be in May, apparently, or allegedly. But Oscar De La Hoya has now come out and said, nah, not happening. Not going to happen, not at the moment. We think that's sort of one and done, and he doesn't need to go back and fight Garcia. So yeah, we don't want that one. And we're going to target Teofimo Lopez. Well, can you imagine Teofimo Lopez and Ryan Garcia in a fight? I mean, do they actually want to fight each other? I mean, Teofimo Lopez doesn't want to fight anybody. Garcia wants to fight, but he's obviously an enigma. He's a loose cannon. Can you imagine Lopez and Garcia in the lead up? Jeez, and would they make it to the starting grid? I don't know. But that's the rumour mill at the moment, is that, yeah, the Haney Garcia fight, while it was initially reported to be almost locked in, Oscar De La Hoya, who would be the best person to obviously ask about and be in control of that fight, has said no, we're going to target Teofimo Lopez. So interesting times there. Either way, even I don't care who it is. I would actually like to see the Garcia Lopez fight. I'm just not sure we'll make it to the starting grid. But anyway, whatever happens with that one, whether it's Garcia Haney, Garcia Lopez, whatever. All right. So this other article. Just let this other dog go past here. How you doing? Come here, man. Yeah, just good boy. All right, no altercation there. Now, the other thing that did get my attention, it was an article about Turkey Al Sheikh, and we've got this infatuation with Turkey, and for good reason. He's bought the biggest fights, and it seems to be getting more and more momentum. The shows are getting bigger, they're getting more regular. He's getting more invested in boxing. Of course, he now owns the Ring magazine. He's now looking at different things that he can start to control. Now, I've had my say about this, about whether it's good for someone to have complete control of boxing, but this has gone to another level, because there's a reporter here. What is their name? Don K. Harris. And you get the impression this guy's a bit of a Turkey Al Sheikh fan. So what he's done is he's written an open letter to Turkey Al Sheikh. And what he said was, first of all, as they all do, thank you, Your Excellency. You're the greatest human being that's ever been born, and we love you, and this and that. The usual that we've become accustomed to. But what he's done is he's written this open letter to Turkey Al Sheikh about the state of boxing and what he could do to fix it. Now, maybe he could, maybe he couldn't. But what I'm saying is, I'll go through these little points that he's got here, and then you can have your own opinion. So what he wrote first was, these are the points he's making, what's wrong with boxing and what Turkey could do about it. So the first one was, boxing needs a commissioner endowed with decision-making authority who can hold all parties to high standard and render discipline and sanctions when necessary. I'm not sure that can happen. So one of the things is with the commissioner is consolidating the 4 sanctioning bodies. All right, so good luck with that. So it says even into 3 or 2, leaving Ring Magazine in charge of the lineal belt. So what he's saying is that Turkey should just come in and abolish get the commissioner. I don't know who appoints the commissioner, because you've got to remember at the moment all these sanctioning bodies are independent bodies. That's what they are. They're independent. So this guy says, well, appoint a commissioner. That can't be too hard. Put him in complete control of what's going on in boxing, and the first thing is consolidate the 4 sanctioning bodies. Just tell the 4 sanctioning bodies to merge and create one. So that can be the belt, but the Ring Magazine will still be the lineal belt. That's the first thing. Then it says restore the prestige of the belt system. This is great, this stuff. Enforce mandatory fights between champions and true viable challengers with belt forfeiture if guidelines are ignored. Okay, so he's got some examples here of did Hagler avoid Mugabe, did Patterson avoid Liston, did Fraser avoid Foreman, all these sorts of things, and that's great. Look, these things I'm all for. I just don't know whether they're possible. So that was the first. That was the second thing. Restore the prestige and just actually make champions fight the mandatory challenges. That can't be too hard. And get the rankings right. That can't be too hard either. So that was the next thing. Stop the elevation of unworthy fighters to dubious championship belts. All right. The commissioner would have. He's got the Rolly Ramiro. Situation as an example of him just being handed a Mickey Mouse belt, and then all these other things there. So just stopping the elevation. So what he's saying is stopping unworthy fighters of getting interim belts and silver belts and global belts and all that sort of stuff. Hey, I love it. Great in theory. Rematch clauses should go before a committee. All right, so there's a lot of these fights these days have rematch clauses, and I do sort of understand this and agree with this. The committee would examine the ramifications of sanctioning bodies stripping titles and will look at contenders worthy of a title fight who would be disadvantaged by 2 names having a monopoly on an opportunity for up to a year and a half. Well, that is a good point, because with these rematches clauses, when you get fighters only fight once, maybe twice a year, and they've got rematch clauses in, that belt could be tied up for 18 months. That's a long time in the career of a fighter. So that's the next one. Develop an ongoing professional education academy to hold referees and particularly judges to a consistent professional standard. This is probably the most easiest one out of all these, by the way, because each sanctioning body or controlling body in each state or wherever it is in the world, actually, or each country, should be able to have their own one. This should be done already, holding referees and judges to account. I don't know why it doesn't happen, but that's not a bad one. Be the voice who explains PED violations. Yeah, well, that's not a bad one either. Just giving the public a clear explanation of what the rules are and the ramifications and all that sort of stuff, and the penalties. Yeah, don't mind that one. Limit the involvement of unsavoury types. So what he's saying is those who claim to be boxing nutrition and supplement advisors, Your Excellency, your country bans most of the supplements. Well, wouldn't you think that'd be common sense that the teams would be able to get that right themselves and police that themselves, not to get involved with unsavoury types who might put foreign or would have banned body things in people's bodies. I don't know. Then it was Commissioner. Okay, no, I'll go past that one. Mandated cultural awareness education for fighters performing in different countries, and he actually used the example of Big Baby Miller in the Saudi Arabia, the press conference. I don't really remember that one, but apparently he acted up and had some swear words and stuff. Well, wouldn't you, again, think that's just common sense of the teams and the promoters to say, you behave like that and disrespect our country or whatever it is, then you won't be on our cards anymore. It's not that hard, is it? But anyway, I like it. So there's sort of the point. So I like the whole thing. I like the idea of one belt. I like the idea of a rankings system that's adhered to. I like the idea of fighters fighting regularly against the mandated opponents. I like the idea of, well, especially the rankings thing, some sort of rankings thing that's unified and there's a system in place. I pretty much agree with it all. The issue is that how the hell are you going to do that? That's my question. How the hell are you going to get 4 sanctioning bodies to pretty much give up control of the little cartel operations they all run and appoint a commissioner to oversee everything and make sure all this is done? How are you going to, here's an example. I know Turkey's got some power, by the way, so we probably can't discount the whole thing because money talks. But how, or could you imagine Turkey sitting down with Mauricio Suleiman saying that this is going to happen. We're going to have a commissioner in place. He's going to be pretty much merging everyone and have one person oversee it all. And he's going to be in charge of rankings and mandated fights and this and that. These organisations and the people that run them make millions and millions of dollars by doing what they do. How the hell are you going to get them to give up that control and that power and the money? It's just not going to happen. So that's probably one thing I would put a line through. If anything, I think there'll be more and more sanctioning bodies that probably appear. The only thing I think I would say with as far as Turki Al-Sheikh goes, and I would encourage this, by the way, now that he's got the Ring magazine and the Ring magazine belt, really push for that to become a bit more prestigious. Now, I think we're all in agreement that the Ring magazine belt is, we all see that as the lineal belt. We see their ranking systems as being the best. Try and just probably more so rather than take over the other belts, unless they want to sell, which I doubt. They'd all probably want $1 billion each to get out, because that's the sort of people they are. Money talks, but I still don't think they would give up control. But I would think giving the Ring magazine more and more prestige, putting more emphasis on it, making it more prevalent, really trying to put it up in lights, I think that would be the way to go, and almost render the other belts insignificant so that no one really even looks at them as real belts and gives them any justice. The fighters don't want to fight for the belts, and do it that way. Almost make the belts like we see belts like the WBF or the IBO or the IBU or WBU and all these fringe belts we don't even look at or rate or even give a mention to. Try and put the WBA, WBC, WBO and IBF in that category where fight fans and fighters go, yeah, we don't want to fight for that. That's not a recognised sort of belt. We want to fight for the Ring magazine belt because that is the belt, and maybe not even, maybe it's called something else. I think the Ring magazine doesn't really have the right ring about it, does it, when you mention it? But maybe they rename it and they just make their belt the belt. They have all the biggest shows. They've got all the biggest fights. Have them fight for the biggest belt and see what happens. Again, great in theory. All this other stuff, look, I just think it should be common sense. A referee and judge one, well, that just should be implemented by the sanctioning bodies and the controlling bodies of each state or country, whatever it is. That's pretty easy. And all the rematch clauses, I do agree that maybe if there is a rematch clause in a contract, there is a time limit. There is a time frame. Maybe it's got to be within 6 months. You must have the rematch in 6 months, and then you must defend against the mandatory challenger 6 months after that. So worst case, you've got a year waiting time as a fighter, which is still a lot of time, but in this day and age, it's probably not, because some fighters are waiting years for shots at belts. But look, they're just a few things. What do you think? I think it's sort of pie in the sky stuff. As much as Turki Al-Sheikh is doing great things for boxing at the moment, I'm just not sure whether a lot of these things are possible at the moment. Who knows? It's good to maybe have a goal, and I'm sure when you think about it, Turki Al-Sheikh has made probably no secret, well, by his actions, that he wants to control boxing and be the man. And maybe they're already looking at things like the sanctioning body situation, I don't know. But and everything else, yeah, it's achievable, but I'm sure it'll take time. So what do you think, guys? Give us your thoughts. Anything else you would get the commissioner of the boxing world to do when he's appointed by Turki Al-Sheikh? Wouldn't you think that Turki Al-Sheikh might actually appoint himself? I don't know, whatever. But anyway, give us your thoughts, and hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you tomorrow.